I want to discuss evidence that you use to support an argument about a piece of literature. In high school, primarily, you were instructed to summarize the plot of a book that you've read, mostly to prove that you read it. So you can say, oh, I read the book and this happened and that happened. And then at the end of the novel, this happened. And the hidden theme is that the teacher knows and you're supposed to figure out. And that kind of writing we're not going to do in college. Instead, we're going to do an analysis of whether the fiction is successful and sophisticated, or whether it's poorly written and maybe it's something that you would not recommend for somebody else to read. That's fine. That's a good argument, actually. So how do we do that? Well, first of all, you're going to create a narrative, mostly your words, and then every once in a while you're going to bring in some evidence to support that. The most obvious evidence and the easiest to get is evidence from the primary source. So if you're writing about a short story and you're saying this author is really good at scene setting because she uses all five senses and active verbs and interesting metaphors to describe, then you can pull a line out of the short story to support your argument. Now, there's a more difficult and sophisticated kind of evidence that you can also bring into your essay, and that's evidence from a secondary source. And we've talked about that a little bit. Probably the gold standard is evidence from a peer-reviewed journal of literature, but you can still bring in things from a New York Times book review or other kinds of sources, which we'll discuss in a different video. But I want to show you some things to avoid, okay? This is not really what you want to do. This is a homework helper site called Lit Charts, and it's got a summary of the plot and some quotes about the book. And I've seen students go and quote Lit Charts, or they quote maybe Spark Notes. These are commercial homework helper websites. You really don't want to use these because they're not really academically sound. Cliff's Notes is a classic. When I was a kid, they used to have these yellow and black booklets that you could buy at the Rexall drugstore and pretend that you read Moby Dick. And the teacher would bust you because you'd just be quoting directly out of Cliff's Notes, and it was clear that you hadn't read the book. So we want to avoid things like that in a college level course. Instead, what I'd like you to do is learn how to find evidence from a scholarly journal, something like that. There's another thing I would like you to avoid, and that is quoting a site that I sent you to earlier in the semester, and that is goodreads.com. And this is a good place to go and look for background information on a book. Goodreads basically features general readers and their opinions of fiction. Let's look at this one, Mistress of Spices by the author Chitra Divakaruni. And she is one of the short story writers that many of you will be reading in our class. Her novels are great. If you're interested in her, Goodreads is a good place to go and find out why other readers, general readers, liked this book or didn't like it, maybe give you some direction on how to pick a book that you want to read. However, I would not quote this because you're just quoting a general reader and somebody who doesn't necessarily have a lot of authority as far as an academic setting. What's way better than quoting general readers from goodreads.com or from a homework helper website like Cliff's Notes or Shmoop or something like that is to learn, again, how to use our library and find quotes from peer-reviewed journals of literature, if you can, about an author, about a book, about a genre of fiction. And I'd like to show you how to do that using a direct connection from our class, actually. If you go to the left-hand side of the page for our course, you'll see online library resource. If you click on there, it takes you to the Shasta College Library. And you can go up here to databases right there, click on that. And there's various databases here that will allow you to do some searches. And maybe you want to go down to peer-reviewed journals and see if you can find something in a peer-reviewed journal that will give you a quote about a book that you want to read. Here's databases for peer-reviewed journals. We're going to go into here, type in the word Middle Passage, which is a book that was written by Charles Johnson. We'll do search and look at this. There's 22 really credible sources that you could read about this book in the Shasta College Library. And that's really an important skill to have. Here's the book. It won the National Book Award. Charles Johnson is the author. Highly recommended if you want to read a book that's more contemporary than Moby Dick. But you can do this with just about any of the books you're reading, and you might find something. You might not. You know, if it's a super modern fiction book, you might find that it's so new there's no scholarly writing about it yet. But you'd be surprised. There's definitely writing about Stephen King. There's even writing about Mockingjay and very, very contemporary young adult fiction books. Don't give up on it. Go ahead and search the library. And if that doesn't work, try this little hack, okay? Type into Google the name of the author and then scholarly article about, and type in that and see what comes up. Or the name of the book, scholarly article about. And oftentimes, Google will find peer-reviewed journal articles for you too. Oftentimes, an interview with the author is a really good place to go. Here's his website, so you can get that. Looks like a peer-reviewed journal, an article about his work. So you can see there's a lot of different ways to get the information that you need to support an argument for a literary analysis paper. You just have to learn how to be creative about it. And I want to end by saying these are skills that you can use beyond English 1B, beyond Introduction to Literature. They're skills you can use if you're an engineering student or a nursing student or studying business or agriculture. It doesn't matter. If you learn how to do research, you'll be able to apply those research skills to courses beyond mine, and that will really help you succeed in college. That's the main reason that I'm teaching this to you. Hope that makes sense.